I'm going to read you something here from a website about the CATHARS. The CATHARS, who were a group of Christians, deeply esoteric, with a Gnostic bent. I would consider the CATHARS to be a esoteric Christianity, almost that have come back in regards to the nature of the Christian religion and faith. I would consider the CATHARS to be the Essenes, who became the Gnostics, who became the CATHARS, who became the Rosicrucions. This is what I perceive them to be. So the Rosicrucions are a mystery school, a Christian esoteric mystery school. So I'm going to read you this first part of this prophecy because it relates to this, what I'm going to explain to you in this video clip. Okay. 700 years since the Cathar prophecy. This is from a website which I will link to this clip. Really interesting that I found this morning. Okay, the last words of a heretic. In 1321, Gulheim Bilbast, terrible pronunciation, so forgive me, the last known Cathar perfectus was executed by the Catholic Church in southern France. His final words carried a strange prophecy. In 700 years, the laurel will be green again, and the good men and women will return. Now, what happened in 2021 in our realm? What happened in 2021? People began to refuse a certain medical procedure, a gene-altering therapy. Right? The good men and women will return. 700 years from that moment, before that perfectus was executed, the good men and women will return. The laurel will turn green. Pretty funny, but also quite beautiful and prophetic. Because in that moment in 2021, when a number of people all over the entire planet said no thank you, no, in regards to their bodily sovereignty, and said no to a control system, the prophecy, in my perception, became real. In 2014, when I wrote the book The Eyes of Love See All with Pablo Wairua, short story collection of heartfelt, emotive short stories, spiritual bent to the entire collection of short stories. Now, Pablo Wairua, unless you understand my work and have seen we talk about Pablo Wairua and Ohoakebooks, my publishing company, which is, I've published 12 books. Pablo Wairua is my protagonist in the books that bookend the Shadow and Soul series. He's a tūhanga, a tūhui tōhanga, but also a Quechua. He's a mestizo. His mother is Quechua. His father was a tūhui tōhanga from the Te Ururewa region of the Bay of Plenty on Te Ika a Maui, the North Island. So Pablo Wairua becomes a short story writer at the end of the book, Entwined, and writes beautiful, has visions of beautiful, heartfelt moments through the entire realm of the multiverse, and sees timelines and writes these beautiful, heartfelt short stories. And one of the short stories that I was drawn to write. Now, I had this experience in 2014 when I met someone in a way that I had never met her before. In 2014, I met someone in 2004, and for 10 years I was crazy about her. Absolutely crazy about her. My heart was just like singing whenever I saw her and thought of her. And in 2014, she came to me, 2012, 2013, 2014, she came to me, and she began to become more and more friendly with me. In 2014, in fact, we had an opportunity to hook up. And I didn't want to. I wanted more. I wanted to go deeper with her. I wanted to go deeper in connection, and I wanted to relate to her and create a life with her. That was what my intention was. But it didn't work out that way. So I channeled 10 short stories in 3 weeks. They just came in. Boom, 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 boom. I was working, painting, doing interior exterior decorating, and also working on Ohoakebooks, publishing books, writing drafts, working with my cover illustrator, working with my editor, my proofreader for other books I was publishing and writing, and working a full-time job, 40 to 60 hours a week. I was working, and I was also, when I was working painting houses, I was channeling and bringing in and compounding these short stories. And one of these short stories that came into my field of awareness was Gnosticism and Catharsism. How the two Christian esoteric, I wouldn't call them sects, but esoteric perspectives on the Christian faith, which comes from the Essenes, in my perspective, which comes from the Essenes, and the knowledge that the Christ was going to incarnate into a human form. The Christ consciousness was going to incarnate into a human form, and it moved that deep esoteric knowledge passed through from the Essenes into the Gnostics and then into the CATHARS, and the Catholic Church saw that as a massive threat to their control system. So therefore they persecuted the CATHARS and eventually came to the castle in Montesquieu and sacked the castle, and then executed all the CATHARS through persecution, burnt them all at the stake. 300 CATHARS were burnt at the stake, most of them children, women, children and men, all killed by the Catholic Church, massacred by the Catholic Church. In my short story that I wrote, which I was channeling, I'm not going to give you the spoilers, but I channeled this information in 2014 when I wrote this short story. And it was a beautiful short story about a Gnostic living amongst the Cathars who converted to Catharsism, to become a Cathar herself, a Bonhomme. She converted from being a Gnostic to become a Cathar. Right? I'm not going to give any more than that because I don't want to spoil the short story. But that prophecy, I didn't know anything about that prophecy. And I had no idea when I was writing that short story about the Cathars, that they related to, and this is the knowledge I've just discovered the last few days, that they related their experience of their esoteric Christianity to Mary Magdalene, as in the Da Vinci Code, as in the Holy Grail, Holy Blood, right? Let's go back to that book, because that book started it all. Dan Brown's book was basically a work of fiction, but with the facts from the Holy Blood, Holy Grail concepts and the knowledge and historical context of Mary Magdalene being the carrier of the Holy Grail. She was a great initiate. She was a deep initiate in the esoteric Christianity, and she was revered because of her ability, her connection to the Christ force, to the Christ consciousness, right? So I had no idea when I was writing that short story in 2014 how Mary Magdalene's position within the Cathar faith, within the Cathar esoteric knowledge, was so massive and so important. But yet today, in the last few days, when I've been researching this, because one of my friends sent me some information on Buddhism and reincarnation, and to me, when I look at Buddhism, all I see is Gnostic, Essene work. I see the Essenes. I see the Essenes moving through the Gnostics, the Gnostic knowledge. I see that the Christ, or Jesus, I see Jesus, the whole idea that Jesus went to India and to Tibet. It's, people say, did Jesus even exist? That's not important to me. The knowledge to me of the Christ consciousness managed to find itself in India and in Nepal and in Tibet, and managed to find its way through the entire Eastern world, right? How it got there is irrelevant to me. What's important to me is that reincarnation, the knowledge of reincarnation passed from either the east to the west or the west to the east, or they both knew, right? So to me, in my perception, the Essene work, the Gnostic work, the Cathar work, and Buddhism all have the same foundation somewhere. The same knowledge has been passed down somewhere through some people, through some culture, through some deep meditative work, through a legacy culture. It's irrelevant where it came from, but for me, I looked at that video on the Buddhist reincarnation, and right away, for me, it felt like I went back to the essence of the Essenes, to the Gnostics, to the Gnostic work, to the CATHARS, to the Cathar work. And this is where I'm coming from in regards to what I'm explaining here in this video, is that I've seen this illumination and this opening of my mind, of my awareness to a greater point of understanding, because there's always more to know, even after I've written the short story about how Mary Magdalene was a huge part of that Cathar faith, of the Cathar knowledge, gnosis, of the Gnostic knowledge, right? How she carried that through as a deep initiate. She was a deep initiate into the Essene work, into the Gnostic work. And then, of course, the Cathars revered her as being like, not necessarily a teacher, but as a carrier of knowledge, a carrier of the essence of the teachings that moved through Jesus as the Christ consciousness, right? Which became eventually the mystery school, the Rosicrucions. So, as I'm reading this morning, my eyes are just popping out. 2021, what? The good men and women will appear, and the laurel will turn green. In 2021, billions of people said, fuck you and fuck off with your injections and your medical procedures. To me, that's the prophecy coming true in our realm. The good people said no, and the good people continue to say no. The good people keep moving forward with this knowledge. I've met so many people in the last year who are priestesses, who are initiates into the Mary Magdalene gnosis, into the Mary Magdalene knowledge, into the Mary Magdalene experience of understanding, of comprehending her part in the deep Christian esoteric faith, deep Christian esoteric knowledge, deep Christian esoteric initiations into deeper knowledge and understanding of who she was. In fact, I went to an experience at the beginning of the year in March. I met a woman called Yvette who channels Mary Magdalene. And when I was sitting there in front of her at the Silo Park temple space, which they created, the IHE, Interactive Healing Experience, Yvonne and Andrew, the coordinators and the creators of the space, created a space for Yvette to bring in her essential oils. And oils, of course, as you know, from if you look at the ancient research, ancient knowledge, gnosis of the Egyptians, oils are anointment. You brought you into a level of initiation into mysteries. Excuse me. Woo, hay fever. Of mysteries. So when Yvette anointed me with Mary Magdalene oil, which she had created and she was guided to create, and then she channeled Mary Magdalene, we had a conversation, Mary Magdalene and I, through Yvette. And when I was looking at Yvette's form, I could see Mary Magdalene's overlay over her form. And as she leant forward to talk to me, she was like this close to me, talking to me, like that close to me. I could see her face looking at me. Like she acknowledged me. She knew who I was. We had an experience together, a life together. So at some point we lived it together. And then I was obviously in another form, not this one I have now. But she recognized my divine spark. She recognized my divine spark, and she talked to me like we'd known each other, which completely blew me open, because the last few years of my life, since 2021, I've had a very strong connection to Mary Magdalene, and she's in my van. There's a picture of her in my van, which I could potentially show you, but I won't. You know what? I'm going to show you my picture of Mary Magdalene in my van. This is a depiction of her anyway. There she is. There's Mary. It's Mary Magdalene. So she travels with me wherever I go. And when I wrote that short story, once again, no spoilers, it's called Volition. It's the last short story in the Eyes of Love See All. When I wrote it, I had such clear images of what was going on and how that short story played itself out and what happened. Like I was there at the siege of the castle in Randok. Once again, terrible pronunciation. My French, not so great, but like I was there at that siege. Like I I could see everything. And once again, when I'm writing, I'm immersed in the experience. I'm completely immersed in the experience. It's like I was there, seeing everything happening all around me. I was the characters I was writing about, everything. I could see it all. And at the end of the story, I knew exactly what I was writing and why I was writing it, because the end leaves it open for those of people who know about Nag Hammadi and what happened there in 1947. Well, that's a spoiler for you in regards to my short story, Volition, which is the end of The Eyes of Love See All. But the more I look into the CATHARS, the more in the last few days I've been drawn to look into the CATHARS and the Cathar faith, the Cathar esoteric knowledge, and the Cathar gnosis. I understand these people as who they were. They were Gnostics living in southern Europe and in Europe, and they were not necessarily dangerous to the Catholic Church, but in the Catholic Church's perception, they had to be destroyed because they were the essence of the teachings of the Essenes, which became the Gnostics, which became the Cathars, and that was a threat to this control system that is run through the Catholic Church and the Vatican, in my perception. I'm not alone there. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. I'll link all of the websites I've looked at in regards to the Cathars on this video when I post it live. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te ua. I'll see you again soon.